Hello, and welcome to the very first ever Wonder Woman Women segment of the Maker Mom podcast. I'm Katie Freeman, the host of the podcast. This is a brand new segment, will be released weekly every Wednesday. I will be interviewing a new female maker who is not a mom within the trade of making, and that can be really anything. It can be woodworking, metalworking, jewelry making, artist, canvas artist, ceramic artist, really any kind of maker. As long as you are female and making something with your own two hands, then you have a chance to be on this podcast. Now, I have been the host of the Maker Mom podcast going on for almost 2 years now, and that still continues. That will still continue to be released every Friday, where I interview other maker moms about their journey to becoming a maker and the hectic life of being a mom. So you can still look forward to that interview as well, just adding in another one a week. And because there's tons of female makers out there who aren't moms and really deserve their chance to share their story as well. So that's what this is all about. I'm super excited about it. Right now, the working title is the Wonder Woman segment of the Maker Mom podcast. Don't have a jingle yet. That needs to be done. But before I hop into the very first Wonder Woman segment with Daej of Daej Designs, awesome woodworker she is, I want to give a big shout out to patrons over on Patreon. So thank you so much, Laura of the Oakley Soap Company, Mary Lou, Made by Mary Lou, Amy, Bison Valley Carving, Dan and Kelly of Reclaim Living Store, Brandy Studio Bay, Kathy, One Girl and Her Tools, Ellen, Little Bear Furniture, and Ethan Carter Designs. I'll tell you more about how you can join the tribe and get your name added to the start of every episode, which will now be twice a week. We'll have an episode every Wednesday and every Friday, so you get a shout out twice a week now. I'll talk more about that at the end of the episode. So let's go ahead and get right into the interview with Daej of Daej Designs. I was like, ooh, that looks super fun. And so I dove head in. I invested so much money in Arbor Tech, and I don't even like their tools anymore. But I dove right in and I just started. And I basically I carved a table. That was the first carving I did, and I loved it. There's just nothing. I can do traditional woodworking, but I have found I like freeform, and I like it's okay if it's not, dead nuts on, because it's kind of art. And so
right.
It doesn't have to be perfect. So that's what I love about it. Yeah.
That's what I was finding when I was carving the bowls, because usually I would do that on a lathe. And for me to be able to just carve it freehand, and I'm not using Arbortech, I'm using I got a Speedgraph blade, which is basically a little table saw blade.
I saw that in your video you posted on how you, from the live, and you put it on IGTV, and I was like, I've never seen that blade before.
I think it's from Poland. Company in Poland makes it, and now they have it on Amazon. At the time that I got it, they didn't have it on Amazon. But that blade, oh my gosh, it is such it's a very interesting blade, because you can take really deep cuts, but the finish is so smooth, where you almost don't have to sand it if you are extremely gentle. If you do all your cuts, and then the last one is just a very gentle one, you don't even have to sand it. It's like glass. I was amazed with that. But yeah, just being able to freeform something and just having that kind of creative flow just come out into the wood, and letting kind of the wood speak for itself and tell you what it wants to do. I love it. I love it. It's so much different, because I don't know if you saw my website, but I'm mostly into mid-century modern style furniture. And I'm very intentional with that too. Mid-century modern was not for Black people. That style was not for us. And so I am trying to kind of change that history, by creating a new one.
I love that.
And so, yeah. So I usually do that, like just sleek, straight lines all the time. And to be able to do this was just something completely different. But I found a new love for it. It's awesome. It's really cool.
Yeah, I would say I've always liked the idea of mid-century modern, like you said, like the clean lines and stuff like that, because I'm kind of minimalist in my style. But what I didn't like about it is there's like no curves. And like I found that I really love curves, and I've always loved it. And that was another draw when I saw Mike carve that table and he put curves in it. It's like, that's what I've been looking to be able to do, is like put some kind of organic shape, you know, because nature is not straight lines. Nature is full of, you know, non-asymmetric or asymmetric, you know, curvatures and lines and stuff. And so that really draws me into it.
Yeah, that is definitely something like I'm trying to incorporate more into my furniture. Like with the multi-toned desk that I made, I like, it's a very subtle detail, but the legs actually splay out like a curve. I was able to do that on the shaper, and for me to like kind of experience that type of style and adding that kind of curve look to it, it was like, yeah, I definitely need to do more of this. So I'm coming out with a collection that is going to be mostly curved things. So
nice.
Hopefully my shop needs to open soon so that I can get this going, because all I can do right now is design the piece, and I really want to build them. But yeah.
Awesome. So we've already been talking a lot, so I'm just going to have to slice this into the podcast because I like what we've been talking about. But I do want to make sure I like kind of circle back and just start with like letting you introduce yourself. You know, who are you? What do you do?
I always find when I speak to new people, like I don't even tell them who I am. I just start talking about just different things we can relate on. But my name is Daej Hamilton. I'm a furniture maker and designer based in Toronto, and I make custom handcrafted furniture, kitchenware, and home decor, including wall art, all sorts of things that people, usually I do whatever people ask me to do. Sometimes I gotta stop them because they be asking for some crazy things, but yeah, usually it's all custom stuff. Growing up in Toronto was very interesting. I went to a predominantly South Asian school, and so even though there wasn't it was like all people of color, there was only about maybe 50 Black students in a school of 1,000. And so we were still being kind of picked out, and whatnot. But thankfully, in grade 6, I was introduced to woodworking. And I found this sort of love for it that I was just so enticed by everything that my teacher was doing. And he really pushed me to continue, because he's always like, Daej, you have a thing for this. Yeah. that's how he would speak to me. I was like, okay, like, thanks. So in high school, I continued it. And there I got another amazing woodworker. And he was just the best. Like, when I reached grade 11, I was the only person in my class. Like, it was like split like grade 10 and 11. And I was the only person in the grade 11 section. And so the entire budget for the grade 11 was mine. And so he was like, you do what you want, you design what you want. And I'm like, this is great. And I don't think I would have gotten that type of opportunity if it was any other time. I always think that like there's always a special time for special things, and like I was just really fortunate enough to get that type of opportunity. And after high school, I went to this art school for furniture making and design. But what I found there was that it wasn't organized the way that I wanted it to be. it was very learn as you go. So for example, we were learning about side tables and building side tables and whatnot. And the class was very, because it was based on creativity and just based on what you want to do, the criteria wasn't the same for everyone. They would give you like kind of like certain guidelines, but you can do whatever you wanted. And so I decided to go all out and make this side table that was, you could fold it, open it up, put stuff inside, close it, all this stuff. And I didn't need table buttons like everyone else. And so I didn't learn how to make table buttons that year because I never needed them, but everyone else did. And even though I would ask, I was like, "Yo, how do you do this? How do you do this?" It was just learn as you go. You would learn as you needed to. And so I didn't necessarily find that type of teaching style useful for me because I thought that it would make more sense for everyone to kind of learn the same things and then use that to implement and introduce their own creativity to build what they wanted. So I left. I had to go. And I went to this different school that was way more organized. They taught you literally everything that you needed to know within a whole 365-day year. Like it was just from January to December, you're learning everything you need to learn. Here we call that fast-tracked learning. And so it was like 2 years of learning condensed into one, but you were learning all that you needed to learn. And at the end of it, you were able to use your creativity to make something. And that's where I made the desk, the multi-tone brick laid desk. Yeah, so then after college, I ended up taking a vacation because I needed to just breathe for a second before I then jump back into woodworking. And that's where I kind of learned more about the sexism in this trade. The first job that I applied to, it was it was a very weird experience. I walked in there and you can see like there were certain people at the front as secretaries. There were white women as the designers on one side, and then all the men were the builders on the other side of the building. And I looked at this setup and I was like, I'm signing myself up to be a part of the building section with these white men here. And I don't know how comfortable I feel with me being completely separated from everyone else in that area. But I still continued on with the interview. And the person that was hiring was just so impolite. There were people coming in, talking to him. He would just stop the interview, talk to them. And then he would ask me questions that made me feel like he didn't know anything about woodworking. He was like, "So have you used like a table saw before, a jointer?" And as I'm showing him my portfolio, which was completely unnecessary as I was going through, it's like I didn't even need to do that. I was just like, "Sir, like, we're looking at the same thing here." Like, yes, I've used all of these machines. Have you? At the end, he was like, "Yeah, can you send us your designs like through email?" And I was like, "No, no, I will not send you my designs. No way." And I told him like, "Yeah, I no longer want to be a part of this. You don't hire me. I don't want to be there." And then I was able to so after that, took a little bit of a break, and then people that I knew from the first school that I went to told me about how they're hiring at this one place. And it was fun. I got hired. I put in a lot of work there. It was a lot of fun, but they had, when you work somewhere, you kind of start to recognize where your values and their values stand and how some things just don't align for you. And so even though like I would be giving them suggestions on how to do things differently, more efficiently, because it was only 5 of us working there. It was a very small
team,
very small team, and it was 5 of us working in the wood shop. and then 3 people working downstairs. So a team of like 8, and every couple of months we'd have someone come on and then come off because they didn't like it. But it was a very small team, and so we all worked together to make these projects happen. And they were very reputable. Like they had like a really great reputation with the Interior Design Show, which is like I guess a design show that happens in Toronto every January. And they were like all over the USA. They had different like affiliations with different people. But the way that they did things, it was like, wow, how did you get to where you are? You know, like how were you able to achieve this? Because now I'm behind the scenes seeing what's happening here, and it's something is not correlating. It's just something doesn't make sense to me. And so even with all my suggestions and all of that, I was the youngest one there. I started there when I was 20 years old. And everyone else was like 28, 29, 30, 31. So they were looking at me as...
So was that place like, I mean, it sounds like in both situations, so these are like design firms that are like designing their own lines, and then people like are doing the woodworking part of it?
Yes, yeah. So we had like our boss, like he was the main designer, the principal designer. And then in that there would be management, who was like someone I was close with. I knew her personally, and she would also help with the designs and prototyping and whatnot. And then I basically built everything. Like I built everything with a team, like other people as well. But there were certain things that they didn't know how to do, so I would show them how to do it. And it was a really good team until I started to realize the values weren't aligning, and they weren't listening to things that I was saying that would help them excel even more. Like simple things, like how to lay your lumber. Like they would put their lumber up against a wall, like a drywall. It's like 1,000 pounds of lumber against, and I'm sure you know, like if you keep your wood vertical, it starts to bow, right? So I would tell them, I was like, hey, we can like eliminate a lot of our waste if we just lay it flat. And they're like, no, why would we do that? Like, it doesn't make any sense. This is how we learned it in school. And I was like, okay, it's not my company, so you guys do what you want, but you'll see. Just simple things, like just things like that. And they weren't really taking into account all that was happening, or all that I was saying.
When in school, that year-long program you took, so was it all learning, like, was it more focused on woodworking skills that they were teaching you, or was there like also an element of like how to design stuff?
Yeah, there was, it was mainly woodworking. Like we would be like, we had almost 400 projects to do within that year, like just little small projects, like joinery projects, cabinetry, kitchen making, and all that stuff. And then we had a class that was based on design and how to, and we learned art history and whatnot. But it was very condensed, and really that was, I would say that was all I needed. My mom does interior design, so I kind of have a little bit of design there. But just that little section of art history and design was kind of like all we really needed to know, because they were teaching us the principles of it. They weren't going into, okay, back in 1000 AD, this person did this. And like, that's things that I found weren't totally necessary to the craft. Like, it's cool to learn, and you could learn all of this stuff yourself if you just watch some YouTube videos, right? Like, I didn't understand why I was paying for these, like, all these different classes, like color theory and all these things that just, like, I'm sure we all have the sense of design, you know, like we all know that orange and brown don't go together. Like, like it was the art school was artsy. They wanted to make mini me's. The designers that were teaching us wanted to make people that were just like them, and we didn't really get to be fully in our own thinking when it came to design. And so the other school was definitely I needed more building experience. I felt
Gotcha.
like I wanted to learn more. I wanted to learn how to be more efficient with building. And like the teachers at the other school, they were so efficient. Like there just be things that they do, and it's just like mind blowing. Like there's this one time, my teacher Mark, he put like all of his pieces together and measured it that way, like the thickness, and he's like, okay, well if it's not even, then you know something is off. And I'm like, duh. That makes complete sense.
Mm-hmm.
You know. But yeah, back to just being in the field. After spending a year and a half there, I figured like it was time for me to go. And the whole going away portion was also very interesting because they didn't understand why I was leaving. Like they were like, what did we do wrong? Like what happened? What, you don't want to work here anymore? Like I was like, I just need to part ways with you guys. And they were like, well, as long as you don't work for anyone else. And I was like, what? But I ended up not. I ended up saving a lot of money to be able to kind of build my own thing and be self-efficient in that way. I found a shop that was extremely cheap, and it was so cheap it was almost concerning. Like, okay, what's wrong with it? Like, why is it so cheap? But nothing was wrong with it. It was just a community center that
has like a co-working space type thing.
Yeah, based on a membership where you have to take a test and
all that stuff. Yep.
And apparently there are like 100 members a part of this club. I've only seen about 15 or 20 people, and there's some days where I'm in there by myself. So I'm like, this is just great. Like, this is wonderful. This is almost like my own shop. Like, this is awesome. And all the people there, like, there's a whole bunch of older dudes, and I remember my mom was saying, she's like, are you sure, like, this is okay, like all these old dudes? I'm like, Mom, you don't understand, these guys are amazing, they're so much fun. they just want to teach you everything, and then in some instances I'm teaching them stuff and that they didn't know, and they're like, wow, you're so young and agile. It was great. That place is awesome. So that's been just over a year, April, that I started Daej Designs. And here I am now, just in quarantine, waiting for the shop to reopen.
So you mentioned before, like, about, you know, you're looking to put out your own line. So like, I think that's super awesome because that's like one of my big dreams, but then I realize I have no freaking idea how to actually make that happen. So
this has been a dream for like 3 years trying to make this happen, and like years of trying to figure out what people want, like what are people going to buy, because if I put out this line, I want to be able to introduce it to interior designers and interior decorators so that they can show their clients, so that they're doing the work for me. They're showing their clients and implementing my design into their design. And that's kind of where like the hard work comes in too, is just finding.
Exactly. I think that's the part, right? It's like I can have designs for days and I can do the work of building it, but it's the connecting the catalog of work and the line with people that would buy it or help sell it for me. I mean, I have some experience working with local interior designers too. So I was going to ask you, especially since you're in Toronto, are you familiar with Kate Duncan?
Kate Duncan.
Yeah, she's in she's in the Toronto area.
That name sounds so familiar.
She is the creator of the Address Design Show, if you're familiar with that.
Yes. Yeah, and they have like a little show. It's been running for a while though. And I literally just found out about this like earlier this year, late last year, because I wanted to be a part of it, but quarantine.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm familiar with her and her work.
Yeah. So I think that would probably be, I mean, you're already aware of it, but I think that would be a good show for you to
Yeah.
definitely get in on. I've reached out to, and I'm saying she, and now that I realize I have a suspicion that it is they pronouns. That I've reached out to them and talked and just chatted because I loved that idea of like basically like, you know, just like the workshop industry, in the workshop tends to be filled with a lot less female representation. It's the same within the like actual design field too.
Yes.
And so I was like chatting with Kate just via Instagram about like they went ahead and started this show because like they were getting shut out of all of these other shows or having to pay thousands of dollars just to get their line, represented there and stuff. So I'm wanting to eventually someday, another pipe dream probably, but to start another show in the US somewhere, that would especially highlight women designers, members of the queer community designers, and people of color designers. Like basically everybody who is not a white heterosexual male as a designer is who I would like to highlight.
It's needed.
Because it is needed. I mean, to your point, like there's a bunch of us out there who have amazing designs that just don't get the same visibility. And again, this is no slurs or hate against, white heterosexual males. It's just wanting to create opportunities for others as well to join the party.
Speaking on that, like, I'm sure you saw the popular woodworking post that's gotten so much reading the comments in that post. I was like, we need a reform, like a complete reform to be completely inclusive of everyone in this field. Because it is so scary to think that there are so many people who don't want it, who don't want this inclusiveness, who don't want people from all different backgrounds to be involved in what they call their field. And that's such a scary thought. So when people like Kate and people like you are thinking of how we can start to include more of us, more queer people, more people of color, more people with disabilities, in this field, like that's a statement in itself, and it's definitely doable. I'm here for it. I too want to start something as well. Way down the line, my dream is to have a gallery with my girlfriend, and she does interior design, and I
man, you've just got all these interior design advantages. I'm just gonna throw that out there. I'm a bit jealous, just a tiny bit.
She's very new in interior design. She lives in Colorado, and she's going to the Rocky Mountain Art and Design School for interior design. But we want to have like a gallery. I don't know, probably here. I'm trying to push her to do it in Toronto.
Is she American or Canadian?
Yeah, no, she's American. Yeah.
Yeah. If you want, I can hop on that train and tell her to get her butt out of America.
Yeah. I'm like, listen, you need to do your passport like yesterday. Like, we need to get this going, okay? Like, come on. But we're trying to develop like a gallery just for women, and in that gallery, we would have like a section for people to teach others their field, even like not just woodworking, like ceramics, glass, all of these different things, all the different mediums, textiles, and then have them showcase their work within that gallery. And they wouldn't have to pay like gallery fees, like I don't believe in that. I don't believe in having to pay for things that you don't have to pay for.
Have you heard of Making a Seat at the Table?
I've heard of that.
Yes, that was a show that was I think they had it in Philadelphia. It was like October through like the start of this year. I had one of the women, I actually had both women actually, but Laura Mays. I don't know if you're familiar with her or not, but she's an instructor at a woodworking school that used to be the School of the Redwoods or something like that. It's in California.
Yeah, I've heard of that school.
But she was one of the people who put it together, and it was all women furniture designers and makers who had and artists who had their stuff in that show, in that gallery, which now I can't find it. Center of Art in Wood.
Center of Art in Wood.
Yeah, it's in Philadelphia. Nonprofit museum, exhibition gallery, library, store, nurturing and promoting art in wood.
Yeah, I'll definitely check that out. Philadelphia is just a drive away, so
yeah, it's not too far for you guys at all. But yeah, I think there's a lot of synergies out there. I think there's quite a few of what I'm putting in the us category of wanting to bring a light to all of these people who participate in this industry. And I did see popular woodworkings. You're talking the Black Lives Matter post is the one. I'm kind of glad now that you said you read the comments that I didn't. I was pleased with their post. I was pleased to see a woodworking magazine take that stand because none of the others are doing anything.
Right.
And so I was actually happy to see that, and one of a fellow queer female maker that I know, and she's also happens to be a person of color, we're friends, and they reached out to her to help, participate in how they're trying to change their own culture and be more inclusive. And I think that's great,
Yeah, it is. It is. The editor is a younger dude. And so I feel like he doesn't have the same mindset as all the older dudes have. I keep calling them dudes, but
I know what you're talking about.
he seems like he's really trying to put a foot forward, even though generally speaking, like we all needed this so long ago.
Yep.
It's cool to see, like as I was saying, I think I commented on that post, like that it's nice to see that the woodworking community is finally trying to be more inclusive. That it's nice to see that, that maybe if a child is going to see this, they might see themselves within this book. And that's like really where my heart is, like for the kids, because you won't be able to get more people in this if they don't see themselves in this. Exactly. Right. And so I think that what they're trying to do, and hopefully they do it, the right way. But I think it'll be good for the community as like a start to reform.
Yeah. It's a tough balance though too, because like you just mentioned, like the older guys that that work in that same shop space that you work in. I mean, in that one-on-one relationship, I mean, I don't think I've ever had with another woodworker a bad experience with a male woodworker. Right. I personally have never had that. I know that there are women who have, but I've never personally had that. Usually it's a sharing of this joy, this passion for making stuff. And, my sister says that I geek out about this stuff, which I totally do, and geek out about like, oh, how do you do this? Or that's really cool, or never, and can spend hours having that conversation and making things together. So that's actually really disheartening to me that there were those comments on that article from Popular Woodworking, because I would not actually have expected it.
No, it was like it was tough to read, but then also felt like this is what I'm working against, you know, like this is the whole reason why I'm doing this, because I had to become the representation that I dreamed about, because I wasn't seeing myself within. Even though my teachers were amazing, they were all hetero white men, but they were all so fantastic and so encouraging. But I still was not able to see myself in this field. When I was back at the art school, there were 3 Black women in the entire craft and design thing, and 2 of them got injured. One of them obliterated her fingers, and the other one cut herself on a saw stop. And I remember someone had come up to me and said 2 down, 1 to go. And I was like, wow. And that made me like just want to just work so much harder just to fight for all of us, you know, like just to kind of just break like that glass, so that the rest of us can just walk through with ease. That's where I'm at. So seeing those comments was like motivation for what I'm doing. It hurt, but I re-energized that hurt into motivation to just keep doing what I'm doing, because it's needed. We need more people out here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Daej,
Yes.
we've had an awesome conversation. I appreciate it so much. And forgive me, we've got 2 new kittens in the house. They've only been with us for a week, so they're very interested in what's going on the desk. But I want to give you an opportunity to let people know, like, how can they find you on the interwebs, and, you know, and follow along with you and see that brand new line when it comes out later on.
Yes, just you can check me out on Instagram at Daej Designs, Daej Designs, and then my website, daejdesigns.com. That's the 2 platforms that I'm on the most. I'm trying to work up the Facebook page, because I know there's a whole bunch of people on Facebook too now, more than ever, really. And so, but Instagram and my website is really where you would be able to find all my work.
Okay, awesome. And I will put the links to those in the show notes so people can find that easily. And yeah, thanks again.
Thank you so much for having me, Katie. This was awesome. Yes. Great conversation.
Yes. All right. So again, that was Daej of Daej Designs. I will include the links on how you can follow along with her in the show notes for this week's episode. And the easiest way you can find that is following along with the Maker Mom podcast on Instagram. That's just at Maker Mom Podcast. Click the link in the bio. It's a Linktree link, so there's lots of places you can get to. One being the show notes for all the weekly episodes from now going all the way back. So definitely a place to go check out. Now, if you're really excited like I am about this new segment, and now you're also discovering the Maker Mom podcast and you love that, there's a few things you can do to help support the podcast. Probably the easiest and simplest way is to make sure you are subscribed to the podcast on whatever platform you're listening to it on. And if you could go over to iTunes, subscribe, and leave a rating and review, because that allows other people to find the podcast. That's the simplest way. Now, if you're super duper in love with the podcast and want to up your game a little bit, you can become a patron over on Patreon. So that's patreon.com/MakerMomPodcast. There's a $1, $3, and $5 tier level over there that is currently under construction as far as updating what goodies you get at each of those tiers. But there are t-shirts, there are stickers, all that good stuff. And with this new Wonder Woman segment, I'm sure I'm going to be adding other goodies in there as well. So you can go check that out. Again, patreon.com/MakerMomPodcast, or you can find it at the link in the bio at MakerMomPodcast or on Instagram. Or a third option, there are Maker Mom podcast t-shirts available just to buy as a t-shirt. And the quickest way to get there is to go on over to Freeman Furnishings, which is my furniture business. Go freemanfurnishings.com/shop, hit apparel, and there is the Maker Mom podcast t-shirt available to purchase. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this inaugural episode of the Wonder Woman segment of the Maker Mom podcast. I hope you enjoyed it so much that you come back next week, because next week I have Jessie of iJessup, and you will definitely not want to miss that conversation. All right, until next week, have a great one.